Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're taking a look back at one of the currently most widely used tools and see how it stacks up against the other tools we've tested so far in the market, okay? So we're gonna be going over this Milwaukee M18 FUEL Brushless Gen 2 Sawzall, and you wanna see how it sticks up against all the other ones? Stick with us. All right, you guys, so like I mentioned earlier, this right here is Gen 2 FUEL, model number 2821. So they had the Gen 1, the Milwaukee FUEL Sawzall. They made some updates. We'll go over those updates real quick. And they made this one, which has more improvements, right? Or so they say. So we're going to go ahead and see how that works. So we've also reviewed the Super Sawzall and all kinds of other Sawzalls from other manufacturers. So this one is fairly new to us because we recently just acquired it. It's not a sponsored video. We just want to see how one of the most widely adopted Sawzalls stands up around here. So before we get too far into it, let's get into the marketing hype. So this right here is the M18 FUEL Sawzall 2821. Is the next generation of legendary performance, Milwaukee says, and durability. Designed for the toughest job sites, it has the fastest cutting reciprocating saw in its class with this powerful brushless state motor, 3,000 RPMs, 1.25 inch stroke, REDLINK PLUS. It's got like more runtime than all the other saws, if you believe the marketing hype and all that kind of fun stuff, right? But it has corrosive clamp. It has a wear resistant blade change. It has a metal reinforced battery connection. It is lighter, they say. It also cuts faster, they say, right? So long story short, it's got a quick lever action. It's compatible with all the M18 batteries. The shoe is adjustable. The wear clamp actuated lever is a quick lock blade change clamp, which is nice. The reinforced blade battery connection, we'll drill into that real quick because that's actually a nice feature that they did add to this. And this tool, according to the manufacturer, weighs in at a whopping 8.4 pounds, okay? All right, you guys, so let's go take a look at this saw. This right here is obviously left-hand part of the saw, and this stuff right here, this rubber over grip mode, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, is pretty nice. It's a pretty nice rubber. It's pretty thick, and it feels really good quality. I mean, this is pretty much what you'd expect for fit and finish of a Milwaukee tool. Okay, so all this black stuff here is rubber over mold. Only thing that's not rubber over mold that's black on here is probably gonna be the shoe part right here and this blade clamp lever mechanism. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the stuff here. I don't know if there is more or not. I just don't have the first generation tell you, but it feels like, just looking at the picture, there probably should be more, and there probably is more, but it's pretty thick. So I'm sure it helps with, you know, vibration resistance and all that kind of fun stuff, but that's one of the big changes I feel like they made on here, okay? The other big change on here is this saw now actually takes air in, right? Because as the motor spins and the fins draw in the air, it actually takes air in from the back here and spits the air out from the bottom. So that's actually a huge improvement, because if you look at some of the other saws, or even the Super Sawzall, I think, take some of the air in from the sides, or some saws actually even take it in from the front. So what's wrong with that, right? If you're cutting straight down, that's probably not too much of a big problem, but there's a lot more potential for, you know, dust and debris to get sucked in there. But also a lot of reciprocating saws are used like this, right? Like if you're cutting a pipe or something like that on a ladder, you're probably going like this, and that means, you know, all the water is probably going to start going down this way, and it's just going to get in and mess up the motor, right? So that is a nice improvement that they did make. I'm not sure how many people, if they even point that out, but you know, that seems to be like a really nice improvement they made on this saw. Okay, so moving around to the backside here, this right here is a variable speed trigger. It does work pretty well. We'll go ahead and show you that in a second, but there is no variable speed band selection. There's no low high, no low medium high, no dial, nothing. It's just a variable speed trigger, and it's just one band through that variable speed trigger. This right here is a lockout mechanism that prevents you from, you know, triggering it, but we'll go ahead and toss this 3 amp hour high output battery in there, and we'll go ahead and show you the variable speed action, okay? So take a look at this trigger here real quick. Okay, so yes, the variable speed is really nice. It is what you would expect from a Milwaukee tool on the variable speed trigger. Personally, I actually really prefer the 2-finger triggers, because sometimes you're just using the saw a lot, okay? And having a 2-finger trigger is nice. I know some people probably prefer the single finger trigger, but I'm just gonna point out this is a single finger trigger, okay? So moving around this side, not too much different on this side, except you can have a rafter hook here. This rafter hook is pretty much like a C-shaped type here. So you hang it on something, Sometimes I do like it to be curved so it doesn't like fall off or just slip off once you bump into it, once you're taking out something. But hey, that's what's there, okay? So before we move on to the front, let's go take a look at the bottom side here. Not sure how well it's going to come up, but see this little silver line right there? That means there is a metal plate right here, right in between, or right above or in between these two pieces of plastic here, where the battery slides on and off, okay? So where the battery meets the tool, it's actually still much more plastic, but that metal piece is in there to help it from cracking or breaking off. Because sometimes, you know, you may drop the tool like this and it may break off. Who knows? Just kidding. But after a long use of, you know, wear and tear of just like using the battery on and off, these pieces will start to get tough. And, you know, with all the vibrations, it does cause a lot of wear. So it did insert some metal pieces there. There's no vibration dampening like gel inserts or anything like that down here, but, you know, just wanted to point that out, okay? So moving on to the front here. There is an LED right here. We can show you that if you want, if you didn't see it already. So we'll go ahead and drop this in. Look, there's LEDs on there. It shows up pretty nice. We'll go ahead and take it off. So also going in on here, this is a pivoting shoe, as almost all reciprocating saws have nowadays. But on the bottom here is two buttons. So you press this button and this button simultaneously, which means together. You can't just press one and get it off. You have to press both in order for the shoe to slide off. Okay, so that shoe slid off pretty easily. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that in almost all the videos. Once you do a lot of cutting, there's a bunch of gunk and debris in there and it will not slide off that easily. This just slides off pretty easily because we spent a good couple minutes just cleaning it up and blowing it out, even though there's still stuff on it. But it slides in and out pretty easily and it, you know, works pretty well. So that's one thing to note on here, but for now we'll take this thing off. And this right here is the blade clamp or knuckle mechanism. So similar to the one we just showed you in the previous episode of reciprocating saws. This one right here follows kind of similar to say the Makita GRD01 or 2 design, whereas, or other even reciprocating saws, there's a lever right here that opens the knuckle in here, okay? So it doesn't hold it open, but it does open it. Okay, so that's improvement over the Super Sawzall, which doesn't have that. You would think the word Super Sawzall would have all the bells and whistles, but in this case, it doesn't. Okay, so in order to do that, you have to hold this lever up, put the blade in, let it go. There you go. Blade's locked in. Once it's locked in, not a problem. Does it spit the blade out? Let's just go ahead and show you. You pull it up. It doesn't spit out. It doesn't even pop out a little bit. Nothing happens. The only thing it does is it opens the knuckle just a little bit or enough to get this out, okay? So that's what really happens. This shaft mechanism is completely encased inside the tunnel of this reciprocating saw. So if something happens with it, yeah, you're probably gonna have a problem. But, you know, other than that, I can't really see too many things happening with this. So while we're talking about the front here, let me go ahead and see if I can even demonstrate or explain something that's going on. So one thing I noticed about this saw, and we haven't had this saw for a long time, I'll go ahead and tell you that, but we have been using it for, you know, a little bit, and what we've noticed is that with this saw, a lot of the debris actually not necessarily goes in here. Sure, don't get, a lot of debris goes in here, but a huge amount of the debris actually goes in here, okay? And you would think that's not a big problem, but let's go ahead and show you what happens here. So if you're cutting right here, a lot of debris actually falls down as the blade spits it out, right? Falls down in here and it goes into this tunnel, okay? And then this tunnel is not exactly sealed on this saw. So one thing that I've noticed, and I'll see if I have a video of even capturing it, is that as you're cutting, some of the debris actually goes all the way through here and comes out the bottom here. I don't even know if we have some in here. We did blow it out earlier, but let's see how much is still left in here. So if you go and take a look at the bottom of this, look at this. Look at all the debris that's in there, or the sawdust or whatever it is that you were cutting, right? Look at that. You can tell it was in there because, let's see. Does this come out well on camera? Seeing how much you far back? Yeah, look at that. A bunch of debris actually just goes in through that tunnel and ends up there, okay? As you can see in here, it's not like completely sealed off or anything. This is just a rubber overmold that kind of goes over this tool. So that, you know, that's a little bit concerning because, you know, like I said, I haven't used this saw anywhere nearly as much as we've used other saws, right? But I could tell, you know, over the long time of using this, that thing is just going to be filled with debris, sawdust, gunk, whatever. And who knows what's going to happen if you're like, cutting water-filled pipes, or even let's just say gray water or sewage water pipes, and it just goes in there, and now you just got a bunch of nasty water sitting between there. So yeah, that's going to be something you probably have to think about if you're going to buy this saw and use it. But other than that, that's what's really going on with this tool. So without too much further ado, let's get into testing. But before I tell you that, one thing I'll go ahead and show you is that one thing that's going to be completely missing, as you've already probably noticed, is that, like I said, there's no band selection and there's no orbital on-off mode. So that's what's really going on with that, right? But before we get into testing, we'll go ahead and point out this saw has since been upgraded from an 1/8" stroke to an 1¼ stroke. So you're gonna think, oh wow, it's an 1/8 of an inch, not much of a huge difference. But an 1/8 of an inch going at 3,000 RPMs actually makes up for quite a big difference. Okay, so keep that in mind before we get into testing. Without too much further ado, let's get into it. All right, so let's go look at those numbers, all right? So first off, we ran the SAWZALL with all of these batteries here, as you can see here, if we arrange it from capacity, let's say, with a 3 amp hour battery. So with a 3 amp hour battery, high output series, first run 12.32, second run 12.45, third run 11.85, fourth run 11.57. After the 4 runs comes in at 12.05 seconds, all right? Moving on to the 5 amp hour XC battery. Remember, this is not a high output battery. So first run 12.25, second run 12.42, third run 10.90, fourth run 10.33. Average of the 4 runs comes out to 11.48 seconds, all right? Moving on to the high output XC 6.0 battery, okay? So with the 6.0 battery, the first run comes in at 13.50, second run 13.12, third run 8.25, fourth run 9.72. Average of the 4 runs comes in at 11.15 seconds, all right? Moving on to the high output big boy, the 12 amp hour high output battery. First run 9.82, second run 9.62, third run 8.47, fourth run 8.23. Average comes in at 9.04 seconds, all right? So now let's go take a look at all the numbers and see how they really stack up, right? So first off, with the 3 amp hour high output battery, remember, this is a single row or single parallel set, right? There's no other series in parallel with it. So with the single 3 amp hour high output battery, total performance score number comes out to 12.05 seconds. All right, where does that put that? That puts it bam right behind the DeWalt that doesn't make sense. DeWalt DCS 386 Flex Volt Advantage SAWZALL, and right ahead of the Flex FX 2271 SAWZALL. With the 5 amp hour battery. So the Flex Volt Advantage, that one also was tested with the 5 amp hour battery. So it's right in between those two. So that actually seems like it, kind of fits almost right in the place where it should be, right? So with the 5 amp hour battery, remember this one uses older 18650 cells, and there's 2 sets that are in parallel series, if that even makes sense. So with that one, the total performance score comes out to 11.48 seconds. Wow, okay, let's go take a look at that. That is right behind the Flex FX 2271, right, with the 5 amp hour battery, and right in front of the Milwaukee Super SAWZALL with a high output 6 amp hour battery, right? So that gets really interesting there. So speaking of 6 amp hour high output, let's go take a look at that. So with the 6 amp hour high output, this SAWZALL comes in at a performance score of 11.15. Where does that put that? That puts it, bam, right in front of this XC 5.0 high capacity battery, and still right behind, obviously, the FX 2271 with the 5 amp hour battery, all right? So what everybody's going to be wondering, how does the SAW work if you really test it with the big boy, right? So with the 12 amp hour high output battery, let's go take a look at the numbers. So numbers say the total performance score comes out to 9.04 seconds, okay? That's actually quite fast. That's a pretty big jump between the 6 and the 12, right? So that's right behind the Godzilla Metabo HPT 36 volt multi-volt reciprocating saw with orbital off, right, using the 4 amp hour battery, and right in front of the Milwaukee Super SAWZALL 2722 using a high output battery, which had a score of 9.34. Okay, so let's go take a look at some of those numbers. All right. Going off and taking a look at some of the results, numbers up on the screen here. If you look at it, let's take the drop weighted test, right? So look at drop weighted test. Obviously, the 12 amp hour high output battery was in single digits because it's in the 9s, right? But then as you get into, let's say 6, 5, and 3s, they become right around 12 to 13 seconds, all right? So that's not as interesting as what we see in the 3rd and 4th runs, which is put more pressure on the saw and see how it works. As you can see, the user applies more pressure to the saw obviously needs more power because it starts to bog down. The I can't know why I keep saying 9. The 12 amp hour battery was still able to deliver performance cuts within a single digit, so the cut number started dropping down to 8 seconds, right? And then on the high output 6 amp hour battery, it was also dropping down to single digits between 8 and 9, all right? Whereas the 50XC the numbers did get better, right? It went from about 12 to about 10s, right? So that's a pretty big difference, but it was still not able to get into single digits. And with the high output 3.0 high output, it went from 12s to 11. You could really argue 11.57 is, you know, that's 12, or even 11.85 is 12, right? But there's not too much of a difference. So what we can really take away from here is that obviously, it's pretty obvious, that more pressure you put on the saw, the more power the saw needs. If you just let the saw do the work as you're supposed to do, let the tool do the work and don't injure yourself, then obviously the high capacity batteries or the high output batteries are the best ones to go to. You know, what's really gonna matter is just use the one that you got, right? I'm just here to give you the numbers. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. What can we say? This is the Gen 2 Fuel M18 Sawzall. Do I really see a benefit of having this one over the Super Sawzall after having both of them? Not really. The one thing I will notice immediately about this one feels lighter, more compact. This, you know, it's not as long, that type of thing. It doesn't have orbital action, or at least doesn't have a switch to turn orbital on or off. But to me, like I mentioned to you in all these videos, I really don't care for orbital action, right? I'm more in terms of, you know, how does the saw feel? How does the saw work? Is it going to get the job done? Do you feel well refined and working with the saw? Okay, so let's go talk about that. So with this saw, I will go ahead and say the really bad thing about this saw is that the user feels almost all the vibrations the saw puts out. Okay, one thing, the saw is not very heavy, let's say, so therefore any reactive thing that happens, or recoil, let's say, you're feeling it, and you're feeling it in your arm. We can probably try to throw up some questions, tell you the difference, or show you the difference between, you know, how much vibrations are coming through the saw. But because of those vibrations, I would not particularly buy the saw. There's other better saws out there, like for instance the Makita GRJ02 with the AVT, or even the Metabo HPT multi-volt one with reactive force control or something like that, right? RFC. So personally, I'm more on the side of, you don't always need the fastest tool to get the job done, but you do want to use a quality tool and a tool that feels nice, and you want to reduce less fatigue on yourself. All right, speaking of which, we did buy this saw. This saw we purchased first, I think it was somewhere around $199, almost full retail price, but you know, nobody sent this to us, not a sponsored video, right? So if I had to answer the question, would I go out and buy this saw again? Probably not, because for $199, what you can really do, as I told you in some of these other videos, you could go buy the Metabo HPT 36-volt reciprocating saw for $179. As a tool only, it will come with a battery and a charger, and then you can use the receipt to go get another free battery. So you got two 4 amp hour multi-volt batteries, which is 4 amp hours in multi-volt mode in that saw. So you get a total of 8 amp hours of capacity, and the saw with faster cutting speed, more user reduced vibrations, and lifetime tool warranty versus for less than just this. Okay, now we'll go on and say, with all the promotions and stuff like that going on, you can get this saw for a lot less. Okay, depending on what promotions you get, what other tools you want to get with it, or that kind of stuff. But if we're talking about just bare tool, just buy the tool right outright, this is going to be somewhere around $199. So that's what I really had to say. So for me, I'm particularly not invested 100%, like locked into any battery platform. If you are, and you're a Milwaukee fan person, you're in that platform, go get it. You know, there's probably nothing really wrong with it. They've made upgrades, right? The blade clamp lever thing here is nice. The it doesn't stay, the knuckle doesn't stay open. That's nice too. This thing slides on, the shoe slides on and off easy. It's got a pretty good rafter hook. It is pretty lightweight, compact in size, and does very well. Let me go ahead and say that. It does very well for its size, okay? So with that being said, that's all I can really say about this. I'm just here to give you numbers. You have to choose what you need to do. But hope this video helped you guys out. Otherwise, have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time.